Friends should be there through thick and thin, but it doesn't always work out that way. In this video, we've got stories from real people about the worst things so-called friends have ever done, including the last unbelievable story about what one guy did to get back at the former friends who left him homeless during the holidays. I was driving a friend home at around 1 a.m. when disaster struck. I got into a car crash. As I entered an intersection on a green light, I was hit from the right by a driver who didn't give a hoot that his light was red. I called the cops, but they said if there were no victims and the cars could be moved, they wouldn't come to investigate. They told me that I had to go to the station the next day with the other driver to give a statement. The next day, my friend was supposed to meet me at the station to give his statement as a witness. However, he never showed up and didn't answer his phone. I ended up paying for it. The driver who hit me, who was alone in the car at the time of the crash, brought a friend of his who gave a statement that he was in the car and that I was the one who ran the red light. The cop concluded that I was lying, both about the cause of the accident and that the other guy wasn't there. The consequences were devastating. He took my driver's license for 3 months. When I finally managed to reach my friend, he had a terrible excuse. He told me he couldn't come because he had to go buy groceries for his brother at 7 a.m. I haven't spoken to the guy since. Bailing on a friend is bad enough, but bailing when the cops are involved and they're relying on you? That's just a jerk move. The terrible excuse is just adding insult to injury. A girl I knew went out with a group of friends. She sent me a few texts throughout the night and then sent one that was so chilling I stopped in my tracks. It said, "Help, a big creepy man is following me. I don't know where I am." She wouldn't respond to my text back and I didn't want to call and have the phone ring. I called everyone she was supposed to be with and no one answered their phone. I thought all of them might be goners. After consulting with someone else, I called the cops, but they said they couldn't trace the call. I even tried calling her family. I then called a mutual friend, told her what happened, and she insisted we go look for her. We started driving to where the group was last known to be. 3 hours after the text, the supposed victim called me. What she told me was infuriating. She said it was a joke. I told her about all the things I had done to try and help her and told her how angry I was. Her reaction was deranged. She said I overreacted and then proceeded to make fun of me with the rest of the group she was with. I asked her why she thought being in harm's way was funny. After that, I was ostracized and pretty much shunned by all of them. Talk about the friend who cried wolf. I'd think it would be a comforting thought to know that there's someone you could call when you're in trouble who would do anything to help you. But this person not only took that for granted, they painted it to look like a bad thing. My friend Dan and I met a very attractive girl at the same time while working at Starbucks. We both got her number, but I was the one she was talking to the most. We hung out a few times, talked all day, and I knew she was into me. I told Dan this, and he approved. All good, right? Wrong. He told me I could go for her if I wanted. I thought about what a good friend he was for not getting upset, because this girl was seriously hot. This trend had continued for about a month when I learned she and Dan had planned to drive to Austin together since it was about a 4-hour drive. I thought it was cool because the whole time there she was texting me. About a week later, when they were both back, everything changed. I noticed less attention from her, and whenever I hung out with Dan, he was always on his phone smiling. I knew she was on the other end, but basically just ignored it. After a couple of more weeks passed, I got suspicious and calmly asked him if there were a thing, explaining that I wouldn't be mad at him because she wasn't my girlfriend or anything like that. He assured me they were just friends and that I should still go for her. So I kept trying. Big mistake. The more I tried, the less I got responded to. About a month further into it, I was going crazy about this girl and what caused her disinterest in me. I talked to Dan about it constantly, and he gave me advice. He told me what to say to her and encouraged me. He told me that she still dug me. I had no idea what was really going on. A couple of months later, I finally gave up and moved on. About 6 months later, Dan told me they had been hooking up almost every night ever since they met. I don't necessarily subscribe to the, bros before motto, but this is beyond cruel. Who holds in this kind of secret knowing how hurtful it is? And the fact that Dan went along with it and even encouraged the guy makes it 1,000 times worse. I moved in with my brother and future sister-in-law, who I considered one of my best friends. They needed a place to live, so I felt like it was the right thing to do. We all rented a house together before they got married. A year and a half later, I wanted to get a place with my boyfriend. My sister-in-law freaked out. She started bawling about how they couldn't afford the house without me. As a result, my boyfriend, his daughter, and I moved in instead. This crisis was averted, or so I thought. Over the next 2 years, my sister-in-law became a slob. She began working from home and refused to clean up after herself. That included her cat's vomit and hairballs. She put their litter box in the bathroom next to the kitchen, then refused to clean it for 2 months until it became so unbearable that my brother would do it. Then it got worse. She completely took over the living room and made us unwelcome in any of the home's family spaces, including the kitchen, dining room, and living room. My brother did nothing. He even exempted her from cleaning. At the time, we had a chore chart, and we all pitched in, except for her. She made it impossible for my boyfriend and his daughter to feel completely welcome in the house. The two of them had to hide out in our bedroom during the day and make as little noise as possible, because as soon as she heard anything, she would come from the front of the house all the way to our room at the back of the house and complain. We tried to move out 3 more times. Her reaction was deranged. Every time she would moan, "Why are you doing this to us? We can't afford the house without you." I didn't want to make my brother's life utterly miserable by abandoning them with a monthly payment, so we continued to put up with it. At one point, she started making seriously disturbing comments. She'd say things like, "I love your boyfriend and his daughter, but it's a good thing I can block out noise as well as I can, because otherwise, I would just kill them." When I would tell my brother about the comments, he would just say I must have misunderstood what she meant. We finally decided that enough was enough and planned to get an apartment. She exploded. I didn't back down, but I was in for a major disaster. We had some financial difficulty and couldn't move just yet. My sister-in-law was thrilled. 2 months later, she got a new job with a nice fat new paycheck. That's when everything changed. 2 weeks after that, I walked through the front door and she said, "So, now that I have a better job, I want to reopen for discussion. You guys are moving out." It was just like that without any forewarning. We ended up renting a bigger and nicer house for less money than we were paying her and my brother. It drove her insane. She became jealous and raided her wealthy friend's storage unit. She took out some of their nice furniture and crammed it into their house. She never tried to contact me again, and for the most part, my brother only calls me when he needs something from me. Living with a sibling and their partner who you get along with should be a guaranteed recipe for success, not a recipe for disaster like this. I love that the OP got to see a little instant karma when they ended up in a bigger house. It's the least they deserve after putting up with that horrible behavior for so long. At the end of my first year of college, we all went out for a friend's birthday at a bar. It was going to be the last time most of us were going to see each other until the fall. We went out, had a great time, and as I was leaving, I was sidetracked and forgot to pay my tab. I had left because I was exhausted and it just slipped my mind. When I got home, I fell into bed and was asleep before my head hit the pillow. I woke up a couple of hours later to a ton of missed calls. One of the girls had given the bar my phone number, and a couple of them were on Facebook talking about how terrible I was. The one who I considered to be my closest friend in college left me a couple of voicemails calling me names. I had a ton of texts from them, and what they said was so brutal. They claimed that everyone just pretended to like me. No one really did. That they all talked about me behind my back and just felt sorry for me. And that was why we were friends. One of them decided to speak for everyone and said a bunch of incredibly hurtful things. I felt awful and immediately called and texted all of them to apologize. I wanted to find out if they were still at the bar, find out who had paid my tab and who I needed to pay back. I obviously didn't do it on purpose, and they all thought that I had. Rather than packing my stuff because I was about to move in 2 days, I spent the whole next day driving all over town apologizing to people and paying back whoever paid what. 2 of them paid $10 and one paid $30. The one who paid $30 was a girl that I did not see eye to eye with, and we both openly hated each other. Her reaction was the most surprising. She was the one who was totally cool about it, really easy to find and pay back. She told me she understood and that how everyone else was treating me over it was wrong. My enemy treated me 1,000 times better than people who were my friends and who I had trusted. It really hurt that they all immediately believed that I'd tried to cheat them. They were all incredibly malicious about it. Not only that, I had paid way more than $50 to feed them. Once a month, I held a board game get-together party and spent at least $50 each time on drinks and food for them. I had also lent people money if they needed it, yet they all turned on me. And it didn't end there. Later, in the fall, I started to make new friends. These people found my new friends and told them that I was not to be trusted, that I was a cheat and a liar, and that no one could believe a word I said. It really hurt. They were terrible people. Sure, it's annoying when someone takes advantage of you, but cutting someone off like this over a simple mistake is so juvenile. I can't believe that people can be so cruel and for no good reason. I hope these bad friends get a taste of their own medicine one day. My friend was constantly depressed about something. He couldn't get a job or a driver's license, and after failing the GED once, he wouldn't try again. I thought life had just done him dirty, so I figured I'd do him a solid and hooked him up with a job with my neighbor laying tiles. Big mistake. As a newbie, all he would have to do was help move tools and equipment and do simple jobs like hammer nails while learning the job so he would become useful. My neighbor, the boss of the outfit, would even pick him up at his house every morning and drop him off every night. It was a great deal. My friend's reaction was perplexing. He tried to turn down the job and give it to his friend. My neighbor made it clear the job offer was for him and him alone. I pressured my friend to take it to help get him to get out of the house and away from the video games that dominated his life. Eventually, he took it. Things started out okay, but after a few weeks, it all started going downhill. He started not waking up until my neighbor came to his house to pick him up. Then, he quit doing anything. He expected $50 a day for $10 of work, and after my neighbor chewed him out because he could not hammer a nail, he had a mental breakdown in front of an important client, so he was fired. If it wasn't bad enough that I'd put my word, reputation, and relationship with my neighbor at stake for him, and him ruining it all, he took me getting him a job as me becoming his own personal charity. He started coming around my place for lunch and dinner when his mom cooked something he didn't like. He wouldn't talk about anything but video games and would just sit down at the family computer and surf racy videos in front of my mom. When I left for college, there was no reason for him to come around my house anymore. But he did. He was always looking for food, an internet connection, and any other handout he could get. When my parents finally banned him from our property, he freaked out. He said that we shouldn't treat him like that after all he had done for us. Needless to say, we aren't friends anymore. Man, you try to do someone a favor and this is what you get? Talk about getting taken for granted. You've got to be a real jerk to not only alienate a friend, but also alienate their parents too. One day, when I was in the 5th grade, a boy in my class that I had the biggest crush on since kindergarten gave me a love note at recess. I was so excited about it. The note said, "Let me know if you like me too. I won't tell anybody." I immediately started writing a reply and poured my 11-year-old heart out to him. I passed the reply note back to him as soon as I could, and then I waited. At recess, I planned to go find him, talk to him, and hold his hand or something, whatever 5th graders do. But as I walked around the playground, I found him crowded in a group with every single one of my friends giggling at something. He had shown them the note I had written. When I walked up, they all laughed at me, and one of them said, "He never liked you. Why would he like you? It was a joke. You're so dumb." And they all laughed harder. I had a hard time making friends for a while after that. It really messed me up when I was young. Oof, that's a heartbreaker. I know it's cliche to say that kids can be cruel, but this is a prime example. I'd like to think that most of the time, they don't even realize they're being mean, but you have to have a really brutal streak to do this to anyone, even if you're only a child. When I met my best friend, she was engaged. Her fiance called off the wedding and things were amicable between the two. I was doing a bar crawl event in the city and my team all canceled the week before. I mentioned it to her and she told me to hit up her ex-fiance who had been nothing but cool to me. I didn't know she was planning something weird. I went with her ex-fiance and when we hit the midpoint of the bar crawl, he tagged me on Facebook. My friend's new boyfriend then started bashing me all over me on Facebook, saying I was a lousy friend. The next day, I found out the disturbing truth. I was told that my friend's suggestion was a friendship test and that I chose her ex-fiancé over her. Even worse, over the past year, I had always been there to talk her through fights with her new dude and spent tons of money on her bar tabs and meals for her because she was broke. I had been nothing but supportive of her no matter what was going on. She had discounted it all. She told me, "You should have known better." Meanwhile, her ex felt bad for creating drama. He bought concert tickets and asked me to come because I had a bad week. I'm sure my friend will come calling the next time she and her new boyfriend have a fight. There's nothing more annoying than that one friend who only comes around when they're single, broke, or otherwise in need and ignores you when they're not. One day, this girl might learn her lesson, but by then, it'll probably be too late. In my junior year of college, 4 of my very best friends, who were like family to me, invited me to come live with them in a sweet house. The rent was a little high, but I had a decent income and could afford my share. I also figured it would be nice to get out of the dorms. Our first month in, one guy couldn't make the rent. That should have been my first red flag. Instead, I thought, sure, I'll loan it to him this month, no big deal. During the second month, another friend was short. I was the only one with savings. I still hadn't gotten paid back from the first guy, but it was either to lend the money or sleep in my truck, so I paid it. In the third month, the friend in charge of the heating never set it up and the gas ran out. Even worse, this was in Alaska, so no gas meant frozen pipes. I had to throw down $500 to get an emergency truck to come out that day, and nobody could chip in. The other 2 roommates were again short, and I still hadn't been paid back from the previous loans. By the 4th month, my savings, that were supposed to last the year, were gone. The power, internet, and water were shut off because the friend in charge of those forgot to pay them, even though I'd been paying my portion the entire time. That year, I spent Christmas homeless, alone, in my truck, huddling for warmth. The one thing that kept me going was the thought of getting my revenge against the friends who did this to me. When they tried to sue me for the utilities, saying that I skipped out on them and left them penniless, I showed up to court with a full copy of state tenant laws, check receipts, and payment history, and got the case thrown out. I just don't get how someone can screw over a friend like that, take their money, and threaten to sue them for no reason. What did they expect would happen? I'm so glad that OP got revenge on these jerks. It's exactly what they deserved. That's the last of our tales of terrible friends for today, but check out the rest of our channel for more wild real-life stories. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like rating, subscribe for more, comment below, and we'll be back with a brand new video very soon.